We have all seen the ultra nice honest guy in many cartoons. Some are soft, some are the counter to the main character, and some may live a double life. Today I want to highlight two characters who embody this character type and show two scenarios where it works. Alan from The Amazing World of Gumball and Wilt from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So just to get the biggest point out of the way, yes, Alan and Wilt are nice, but a common misconception is that they are nicer than the people around them. I would actually argue that it's much more the other way around, that people are just less nice and it makes Wilt and Alan look nicer. Consider Elmore, Gumball, Mr. Robinson, Larry, Richard, Masami, Tobias, Jamie, Bobber. These aren't people who are considered the nicest in the world. Sure, we have people like Darwin, Carmen, and Anais who appear to be nice in many episodes, but what separates these characters from Alan is that they are nice and it isn't treated as a big thing. Alan is nice and that is treated like a big thing. In fact, there was an episode, The Saint, where the majority of it was used as a way to hammer the point home that Alan is a really nice person, and no amount of being a jerk would change that. Now yes, towards the end of the episode, Alan was shown to yell, but, and I guess this is somewhat of a spoiler warning, Alan right after reverted back to his normal happy state, which implied that he did it to please Gumball, which made it a win-win for both sides. More on that later. But to center in on this episode, there is a similar episode like this with Foster's, where the main character who isn't as nice wants the nicer character to be pulled down to their low. These sort of episodes generally have the characters see the errors of their ways after they go to the extreme, which makes the nicer character cement their honesty and kindness through an extreme tolerance to an attack on their character. Like in The Saints, Gumball ruins Alan's day, messing with his food, stealing his parents, and breaking up his relationship with Carmen, that we will explore later in this video. I should also mention that both characters, as a result of their niceness, are seen in a very high light, at least according to the world's karma and relationships with everyone. Going back over to The Saints, which you can tell is a very major Alan episode, Alan had a scene where after Gumball messed up his life, it restored itself because Alan stuck to his morals of saying yes to life. Now obviously one may point out fairly that this is a joke scene, but I would respond with Gumball and Darwin messing up Larry's life once, Mr. Robinson's day many times, Gary Hedges' entire house, and the reaction to those things aren't as simple as it being magically reverted. Now when it comes to Wilt, this shouldn't have to be said that he's the nicest person around, but going back over to the in comparison aspect, Wilt is the nicest in comparison as well. Harriman, while fair, isn't exactly a kind person. Madam Foster and Coco can be wild cards, either really nice or really mean, so they're inconsistent / dependent on the situation. Mac is nice, but in comparison to Wilt, they don't focus on that aspect of him. Eduardo, while also nice, isn't known for being generous, and Frankie, like Madam Foster and Coco, can be a wild card. It's just like in the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. It's not that Mandy is considerably stronger, smarter, or more intimidating than everyone around her, and that is what makes her scary. It is that everyone in a town is either weaker, dumber, nicer, or less aggressive by comparison. Wilt generally serves as the helper for the house, as we'd see in many episodes. Unlike Alan, where I dove deep into a few episodes, Wilt has been in nearly every episode in the series, so for Wilt, I'm going for more of a width approach. You have episodes like Where There's a Wilt, There's a Way, where he gets treated poorly because of his lack of being able to refuse anyone. He's the type of guy who can't say no and wants to help everyone, even if it isn't the right thing to do. Heck, he even went to jail twice within this episode, all because he couldn't say no. There was also the episode Bust the Two of Us, where Mac had to convince the super nice Wilt to lie and cover for him. Unlike Alan, Wilt does break some rules, but ultimately wants to make everyone on each side of the conflict happy. Wilt is nice, so he doesn't like lying, and it clearly shows here in his poor attempt to do so. You also have Star Wars, a very early episode of Foster's Home where Wilt spends the entire episode pretty much holding the door open for everyone. He's that type of person, and it shows throughout this episode. In fact, in Blue, there was a point where he continued to say bless you for a sneezing Mac and Blue, but the one time he didn't, everything in the room came to a froze to focus on the fact that he didn't say it until he said it. There is an established reputation for Wilt for being a very nice person. I want to set a section aside just to talk about their character designs. They aren't physically intimidating and their voices sound like they'd be a nice person. They are very vulnerable, as Alan without any hands or feet and Wilt with having one arm and a crooked eye. These sacrifices towards their physical appearance make them very humble, as it doesn't come up often, especially in Wilt's case. In fact, they may even become a better person in spite of their limitations, like Wilt with basketball. This stems the furthest and would be tested the furthest in Good Wilt Hunting, possibly the most extensive Wilt-related episode from Foster's, as his weight and body type is part of the conflict that Wilt has, thinking that he was a disappointment as an imaginary friend. Developing on this point though, Wilt actually had two him non-crooked eyes and full arms, but due to a basketball match going wrong with his creator, he ran off distraught. Now, while both of them would go on to become ridiculously good at basketball, the scars he got really relates to how vulnerable he is, and why because he failed once really bad, he doesn't want to fail again. Going over to Alan though, you have episodes like The Third and The Mystery, in which Gumball's lack of remembering that Alan hands come up, which again make Alan seem very aware of his limitations. In fact, in the photo, he was popped, and didn't seem too angry at Gumball for it, actually forgiving him and showing a lot of empathy. Now, I came up with a very interesting point that I didn't think of until I focused on Alan and Wilt centered episodes. But because of this dissonance between them and Blue/Gumball respectively, that is the reason why the bond between these characters are so strong, whether it being on envy or jealousy. To augment my argument, let's use the photo for example, an episode I haven't expanded on yet. This is Alan's first major role within an episode, and the episode revolves around Gumball wanting to take the best picture he can, but unfortunately being too unphotogenic. He goes to Alan for advice, considering that he takes great photos, to which Gumball finds his advice of essentially just smiling to be deceptive. Now, it would make perfect sense for Alan to take great photos, because if you combine this point with the point of Alan having great karma, Alan would be highly photogenic. Gumball would be very upset at Alan not taking his advice and even going as far as to beat him up, but unfortunately this would not turn out too well for him. This relationship would also be tested when Gumball breaks up his long-time relationship with Carmen, a cactus, in the storm. Going back to point 1, he refuses to be with Carmen because he feels that Carmen should be with the best person, considering himself a less worthy companion. And this is being compared to Gumball. This wasn't the case, and it leads to Gumball making a big sacrifice just to get the couple back together. I want to talk about two very simple episodes, The Saint from Gumball and Phone Home from Foster's. Both lead the character into doing nice things and indirectly getting into a competition for the main character's envy. With Phone Home, which is very similar to Blue's The Boss, Wilt rescues imaginary friends and is awarded for his bravery. Because Blue loves attention, he competes with Wilt, even though Wilt is doing it for his own personal enjoyment. He loves to help and rescue friends, and Blue should do something that makes him happy. So when it comes to their relationship, it is tested within episodes like these. Also, as a partial note, in Where There's a Wilt, There's a Way, Blue is one of the people that tests Wilt's patience, using him to do things that he would normally do himself. You also have moments in Neighbor Pains, The Big Picture, and many other episodes, where Wilt is essentially used as desperate measures for Blue or Mac and Blue so everything in their adventure goes well. So to recap, Alan and Wilt are both extremely nice and honest, and it becomes a core trait of their character, even if they do other things as well. Their niceness is tested by the main character, who is generally seen as meaner by comparison. This also subtly or directly makes them the core or backbone of why things work in their world or group. Their character designs are very simple and give them many vulnerabilities, which complements how their personalities are not built on being aggressive or physical to get what they want. Lastly, because of these things, it makes their relationship with the main character deeper because of their initial envy or eventual jealousy. So how would I write a character like Alan or Wilt? Well, that's pretty simple. Firstly, their character design should imply that they aren't physically intimidating. Their core values aren't built on aggression or using physicality. Personality-wise, these characters should practically never resort to violence. That doesn't mean that they can't have their occasional moments, but they should have a heavy reason and generally be for the greater good. These characters should also serve as an indirect mentor, towards the main character at least, by leading as a great example that the main character doesn't seem to notice at first. Lastly, they shouldn't matter when you take them out of the story. I know this goes for any major character, but with these characters specifically, they have carved out an identity, reputation, and connection with both the characters and audience that is irreplaceable. But if you were to ask, I still think Wilt is the better character, but that can also be because his character was fleshed out more with more episodes. There's many episodes I wish I could have talked about, but in those episodes with Wilt, he doesn't seem to do anything unique enough to note. Alan is a good character within Gumball as well, and if you haven't watched either show, or you want to know more about these characters, or maybe you want to make a character like this, check out any of the episodes I mentioned within this video. Anyway, which character did you enjoy better? Let me know in the comments down below, and special thanks to the patrons of December. As always, until next time, take care. Alpha out.